all of us. Happy New Year to every member of the book club and to members of book clubs everywhere in the world. Because genuinely, I think we all believe that this is such a great activity to read, to keep your mind open to new things that are being said and happening, and then to talk about them. Yesterday, we met friends and we had this conversation so that people who said they wanted to go home early were there till midnight. And that's the whole point, of talking, conversing, discussing things which are important to us. Now, today we have Monali Chatterji talking about Arvind Adiga's novel Amnesty. Now, Arvind Adiga has done very well for himself, I think. In a fairly short time, he's been quite prolific. He's written a lot. He has got noticed books turning into movies, which in a way is the ultimate recognition. Now, some of us may like his writing, some of us may adore his writing, some of us may not care for his writing, but we cannot ignore him. That's for sure. All right? He's there. Monali has read him, and she's going to make a presentation based on which we will have a discussion. So, all set to go. 24 years completed, folks.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Congratulations, ma'am.
And we're embarking on the 25th year. And Monali, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll just share the presentation. Welcome to my presentation. This is a review of Arvind Adiga's novel Amnesty. This is one of the 5 or 6 novels that he has written. And this is probably the third book of Arvind Adiga that I read. The first one was A White Tiger, which became the center of a lot of controversy. Incidentally, I was in London when he had won the Man Booker Prize for it. And there was a lot of controversy, particularly not just regarding the book, but it made some strong statements regarding the country that he belongs to. And a lot of people were left to wonder whether people could just commit crimes and get away. Amnesty makes an even stronger statement, but this time he has been very careful. And by being careful, it also means that he has, of course, I will not give away the spoilers, but he has talked about some very important questions of the day. So I'll be talking about the author, Arvind Adiga's works, Amnesty. I'll talk about the plot, themes, character, narrative style, and the way ahead as to why this book is so important today. Now, this was published in 2020. It is about almost 5 years since, but it has become ever more relevant in the present day. As you can see in the pictures, you can see Sydney, obviously. Can anybody tell me what this place is called?
The
Or
Sydney
at least
Harbour Bridge
yes,
and the
and
Opera House nearby.
exactly, the Opera House. So these are symbolic of the entire nation, the entire continent, and it has also become symbolic of a number of other things that we are going to be talking about. Some of the images here are auto-generated or AI generated. So in case if you see any discrepancy, I apologize at the outset. So Arvind Adiga, he was born in India in 1974. And after his initial years in the south of India, he moved to Australia, became a citizen there. And after his completing a certain portion of his education there, he moved over to New York, and he attained his Bachelor of arts in English literature, after which he moved to Oxford University. He studied in one of the richest colleges of the UK there. And he attained a lot of prominence even there as a commentator and as an observer. He soon moved on to become a journalist, and this journalism helped him immensely to become a sensitive author. Um, in 2008, he won the Man Booker Award for his debut novel, The White Tiger. He was hardly 24 when he won this award. And even there, he was talking about social equality, social inequality, morality, and survival. Now, this novel, Amnesty, was published in 2020, but a lot of the background comes at least 50 years before the starting of the novel. So, and of course, it explores a lot of subjects related to what happens to undocumented immigrants or illegal immigrants in Australia. Australia and New Zealand are supposed to be the strictest in terms of rules when it comes to immigration and legality. And that is why these have become the key themes of the novel. So it also talks about morality and identity and belonging. The author focuses on marginalized voices. He also gives a very balanced opinion, both the perspective of the authority that dictates it, as well as the victims who suffer from inequality and injustice. So this is a novel that talks about a story of just a single day. So uh, it I'll just go to the next. Okay, so just before I forget, these are some of the works by Arvind Adiga: The White Tiger, Last Man in Tower, Selection Day, Amnesty, and there's a short story collections between the assassination. Um, Between the assassinations is a very good collection of short stories. I have read this, and it was a very realistic depiction of the kind of happenings that occurred between the assassination of Indira Gandhi and the assassination of Rajiv Gandhi. So the stories, although are not even connected, but it talks about um, the kind of scene that we have all witnessed um, from different parts of the world, particularly particularly families belonging to India. And back in India, of course, he concentrates more on the families belonging to villages as well as the cities, again, from different economic backgrounds. So, of course, this is a representative image. Um, Meet our protagonist, Danny. His real name is Dhananjay Rajaratnam. He works as a cleaner in Australia. This is his fourth year of work. So the entire story is the story of just a single day. It begins at around 8:45, 8:46 exactly, and it ends at 7:03. So it is just a story of 10 hours. And throughout the story, Danny is actually trying to escape the clutches of somebody. I will soon reveal who. And while he's doing that, he remembers a lot of things that has happened in the past, how he has come to Australia. He reflects upon why he has to keep running about, although for no fault of his own, and what will eventually happen to his life. So a lot of this depends on what is actually going to happen or what kind of a choice he sort of picks up towards the end of the novel. This is Sonja Tran, a vegan Vietnamese nurse and Danny's girlfriend. Hasn't got much of a role here, but then she also has been staying in Sydney, like Danny has been.
Concept
Uh,
John Vegan.
um, so this is Radha Thomas. She is a 43-year-old lady. She works as a manager in a Medicare office in Sydney. This is Radha's boyfriend, Prakash Vadva. He's 44 years old, and he has a very interesting background. So we will soon know. So everything, most of the things that we see here happen in Sydney. At the beginning of the novel, we find that Danny is walking around on the road, and sorry, oh my God, this is, uh, okay, have I shared the screen? Just a second, please.
We can hear you, see you. Go ahead.
Uh, okay, so Danny is at the beginning of his usual work day, and he is having his cheese roll, and at the same time he is also negotiating what kind of a fee he will charge for cleaning somebody's apartment. So typically his work is to clean people's apartments. He is actually negotiating with somebody when a lady with whom he was negotiating suddenly observes that, oh, you are a perfectionist. Look how well you have made your self-made cheese roll. And suddenly Danny realizes that he is not being invisible enough. And then, of course, he sort of gets into a self-talk and he tells himself that, no, see, I have been here for 4 years. I have lived here honestly. I earn an honest living. So why should I be scared all the time? Why should I remain invisible all the time? In fact, he takes pride in the fact that he has golden highlights in his hair. He has done that so that he looks like one of the Australians. He has also tried to fake his accent so that he tries to belong to the Australians, if not look like one of them. Now, Danny is actually a Sri Lankan. He grew up in a place called Batikaloa, a very beautiful place full of lagoons. And he's grown up by the seaside. Very often he used to bunk school and he would go with his friend to, in fact, talk to the mermaids. He would imagine that he's speaking to the mermaids and the mermaids would come to him dripping in moonlight and so on. But of course, the description that we see there is a very beautiful one. This was when he was in school. After some years, he tells his father that he wants to go to Dubai so that he can earn a better living. He does go to Dubai. He works in a motel there, a business motel. He gets exploited left, right, and center, and obviously he doesn't like it. Um, and throughout the year he gets only 2 days of leave. So even during those 2 days he sort of devotes the entire 2 days to trying to buy electronic items for his father so that he can gift it to him. He tries to also gather as much money as he can. He does not spend at all upon himself because in any case he does not get the time for doing that. All he does is work for the motel and devotes all his time that he had spent in Dubai for the motel so that he can earn a decent living. Of course, the employers there are very exploitative. Like him, all the other employees get exploited. They do not get leaves. And upon his return to this international airport called Bandar Nike International Airport, he is suspected of being a terrorist, and and about 2 or 3 policemen also torture him in many ways. There is one interrogating officer who even pushes a burning cigarette into his forearm just because Danny refuses to accept that he is an underworld don and has been involved in certain dubious activities. So this was his time in Dubai. He returns back to his father, and of course he faces plenty of humiliation there because people who leave um, Batikaloa and go overseas to earn money through, are quite successful economically and financially. At least they are able to flaunt that they have earned a lot of money and they are able to send home a lot of money. But unfortunately, Danny could not do that. So he finds it very difficult to even face his neighbors who are very critical of him. Finally, Danny consults his cousin called Kannan. Now, Kannan is a very resourceful cousin. He too wants to go abroad and settle there and earn a better living and get a better quality of life. So he takes Danny to an educational fair, and this educational fair houses all universities that are based in Australia. So from that educational fair, they pick up the cheapest course, and Danny enrolls for it. He picks up that course. He puts together all that he has earned in Dubai. Apart from that, his father also adds a good deal of his family money to it and tells Danny that, see, if you can manage to go there and settle, then it is possible that you can also get me to stay there with you and we can sort of upgrade our lives. Danny agrees to the plan. So they pay for the fee, they pay for one whole semester in advance plus a deposit, which goes up to about 11,000 Australian dollars. That's a lot of money. Apart from that, Danny also had to pay for his medical insurance. He had picked up a university in Wollongong. So he was supposed to go to the University of Wollongong and study there. So he flew to Wollongong. Then from there, he took the train and finally he reached Wollongong and of course, also saw his college, Mackenzie College. He soon realized that this was a brick building, almost something that looked like a warehouse. Somewhere on the first floor, his classes were held, but he soon realized that his college was a ripoff, which means that it was almost like a racket wherein they would woo foreign students to come and study in that college. This racket was discovered by Danny in the third day of his college when some Middle Eastern students started debating heavily about how they had been charged twice the fee that Asian students had been. Um, that is when Danny realized that this college only charges a lot of fee but does not give the kind of education that they promise. At most, they tend to give their students a job, but these jobs have got nothing to do with the kind of education they get. So this is a technical education that Danny is supposed to get, but at the end of an M.Tech, a B.Tech, for example, people only end up cooking meals in a restaurant or get into some skill-based activity for employment. So Danny is upset, but within the first 24 hours of his reaching there, he writes an email to the Ministry of Home Affairs saying that he wants to be an asylum seeker. He has been tortured in his home country, and he gives the evidence of the wound in his forearm, the cigarette burn, saying that he had been tortured and he wants to become an asylum seeker here, so that he can achieve a refugee status and he can stay here for a longer duration of time. Within another 24 hours, of course, he receives a response from the Ministry of Home Affairs saying that you have been a full fee paying student and you have also paid for medical insurance, which means you do not have any financial burdens. And it is only after you land into Australia that you realize that you want to be an asylum seeker. So your application or your request is completely fraudulent and it cannot be accepted. And if you make such a request again, then you will be deported. So this was the kind of response that he got. He even tried later on to, at a later stage, to put his problem over to social media and see what kind of response he gets. So he posts his question to Yahoo Answers, and an immigration officer had later answered that no, it's a good idea to surrender to either an immigration officer or any law enforcement officer and get yourself deported. This will be much better. Somebody else said that in case if you try to remain here illegally, you will soon be caught and you will be put into a detention center, which is not just humiliating but also torturesome, and people commit suicides there, and you will be again deported in any way. Some A third response was even more flagrant, wherein he was told that he would soon be detected based on his accent. He has even posted over social media a question that is a very sensitive one. It is possible to find out the IP address of this particular site, and Danny can be traced very quickly. Um, Even his town can be traced, and so can his location be traced. So these were the kinds of responses he got. Now, again, coming back um, to the novel, uh, in the first few hours, when Danny was actually cleaning I mean, we are talking about the time wherein Danny is actually cleaning somebody's apartment. So he's cleaning the apartment of a lawyer, and he was vacuum cleaning. Um, he found a spider somewhere. He tried to dispose the spider, and to dispose it, he opened the window and sort of tried to throw it away. And when he was about to do that, he found that there's a flat opposite, an apartment opposite, where he used to work a year ago, and there he could see a lot of police officers moving around. He soon realizes, or he soon discovers from some police officer that there has been a murder there. He also realizes from some other sources that this murder has been the murder that has been committed is the murder of Radha Thomas. So Radha Thomas had employed Danny as his as a cleaner. So Danny used to go to her house once a week and clean her apartment. Now Radha was married. She was married to an Australian realtor called Mark. Now, Mark was a very rich real estate agent. He used to sell houses to the Chinese at some ridiculous prices. That's how he became very rich. But he was also a very honest person. He was fond of Radha, and he did do a lot of things that show that he genuinely was in love with Radha, although Radha had been betraying uh, Mark. Now, coming back to Danny's previous life. So, while he was in his college, there was an abseiler. An abseiler looks like this. So, somebody who sort of hangs from tall structures, either to paint or to clean. So, this is what an abseiler does. So, Danny met um, this Japanese who grew up in in Brazil called Abe. Okay, and Abe was very resourceful. As in, why? Oh, by the way, while Danny went away to Australia, Kannan took a boat and illegally went to Canada. For there, of course, he was arrested. Um, After some months, he was released, and people soon forgot that he was an illegal resident, and he became a legal resident for for the rest of his life. So good for him. So basically, so there are many such instances which show how arbitrary the rules of immigration can be. So he then finds out that Radha has been murdered. Now, while he finds out this, again, Danny sort of thinks about his previous life. Danny gets in touch with this Japanese friend. He keeps giving him a lot of work, as in a lot of assignments. His first assignment was in Glebe. Um, he got Danny to get dropped out of college and stay. He got Danny to get dropped out of college and then look for a work, some employment for himself. Danny did just that. He wrote to the college that, okay, I cannot pay your fee, so I'm dropping out of college. So after the 28th day, Danny felt that he is free for the rest of his life, but he was actually trapped in Sydney for the rest of his life. So his first employer was called Tomo, a Greek owner of Sunburst grocery store. Danny stayed in the storeroom of this grocery store. And Tomo used to be very strict with Danny. After 9 p.m., he would not allow Danny to keep his lights on. He would ask Danny to go to sleep so that the immigration officers do not discover him. And he would take away 50% of Danny's earnings. He would make Danny work in his grocery store and give Danny other cleaning assignments. He got further cleaning assignments from Abe, or the full name is Abelardo Nishida. So while this Abelardo Nishida got Danny in touch with Radha, and from and Radha, who used to stay with Mark, also had a lover, a paramour called Prakash Vadva. So at the opening of the novel, as I said, Danny chances upon the news that Radha is murdered. He later watches on TV that Radha's corpse had been found by a morning jogger on Tungabi Creek, where Radha often went for walks with Prakash, secret rendezvous as such. The red jacket in which her body is found belongs to Prakash. So now Danny knows that who is the killer of Radha. The rest of the story traces how Danny finds out about Radha's assassin and his dilemma of whether he should hand the culprit over to the police at the cost of his deportation. So, so this is what the story is about. Now, Radha has a very interesting background. So she was married. She was an Indian who grew up partly in Australia and was married to Mark. And she worked in this Medicare office, a very plush office, and she was a very she was at a very responsible position. But Radha had some bad habits. For example, in from Monday to Friday, there was no account settling of this Medicare office, which seemed a little strange to me. But from Monday to Friday, there was no account settling, and all account settling would be done in the first day of the next week. So what Radha did was she took up, now because this was a government office, she would pick up all the cash of the government in a shopping bag and walk into a pokey and as in um, and of course play into one of the machines in case the first time she lost, the second time also she lost, the third time she won a lot of money and she took back that money home. Whatever belonged to the government went back to the government on Monday. That was the arrangement she made. So that is what she continued week after week until she lost in one of these gambling machines day after day for the entire week. So what she did was she took away all the money, she packed her bags and drove straight to the airport. But the police were already waiting to arrest her because Mark had suspected something and he had tipped the police against his wife. But in the court, Mark promised the judge that he would take care of Radha, and he would take care that she is honest again, and he would get her to be in a rehabilitation center and make sure that Radha never touches a
This
gambling
Power
machine
X,
again.
they're doing something funny with it.
So
It tastes very funny.
these are the
They're putting
assurances that
hormones and all.
Mark had given.
And the
Now,
things are,
while
the
Radha
rates
was
are all
at
orange.
1 minute. Delia, please switch off your mic. We can hear you here.
Put up your mic. Sit up.
Delia, the sound can be heard. Anyone else who's got the sound on, please switch off. Thank you, Delia. I think.
Yeah, thank you so much.
One person, yeah.
Yeah.
So
at the rehabilitation center.
Here I'm just.
At the rehabilitation center, Radha took part actively in group discussions, and there she met the 44-year-old Prakash Vadhva. So he was once upon a time, he was a soldier in Queensland. He grew up in Australia, and he belonged to a family of doctors, so quite arrogant. He was good at sports, so he was, and of course, he was a miner. So he was a coal miner. Everybody else was a doctor in his house, but based on the fact that everybody else was a doctor in his house, Radha often called him Dr. Prakash, and the gambling den in which they often met, and sometimes also made love, was called the clinic. Now, Prakash was the one who killed Radha. Now, interestingly, throughout the novel, there is absolutely no description of why and under what circumstances Prakash must have killed Radha. But we know that he was the one because Radha's body was found in a red leather jacket that Prakash was often found to wear. So this is what we know about Radha, and this is what we know about Prakash. In case if I remember something else about their lives, I'll mention. But so throughout now, of course, coming back to the present scene, now that Danny knows that Prakash has killed Radha, he really wants to tell the police, and he accidentally calls Prakash. Prakash tells him that, no, see, I am going to be leaving this place. I'm going back to South Africa. And because I want because I want to go there, I want you to come and clean my flat. So Danny often, after cleaning Radha's flat, would go to Prakash's flat and clean his flat. So the arrangement was like this. After cleaning Radha's flat, Radha would drive Danny to Prakash's flat and make him clean that flat as well. And before Danny would clean Prakash's flat, Radha and Prakash would make love in that particular apartment, while Danny would be waiting downstairs. So this was what they habitually did. Now this apartment in Potts Point actually belonged to Radha, because Radha nearly got caught making love with Prakash one day in her own flat when Mark walked in. So Radha wanted to be safe, and that is why I met Prakash in Potts Point, which was another flat of Radha's. Actually, it belonged to Mark. And Radha had let it out to Prakash for absolutely no rent. So Prakash stayed there absolutely free of cost. All he did all day was either play on a gambling machine or remain drunk. So, and we also find that Radha and Prakash had also been to other places together. Of course, Mark does not know that they are having fun together. So Prakash wanted Danny to clean his flat, and Prakash told him that, see, I'm going away to South Africa. So please either come and see me at the clinic, or come and clean my flat. Where are you coming? So Danny tells him that, okay, fine, I will not come to your flat right now. I'm very busy. I'll come to the clinic. So there, Prakash gives Danny some money to play on a gambling machine, and Danny loses both the times. Offers lunch to Danny and makes him talk about how he became an illegal migrant there. While Danny starts talking about it, Prakash tries to make him agree to clean his flat. But Danny, in the middle of his story, and of course, suspects that Danny's story is not true. So Danny actually had been to one of the places where he was supposed to clean up cacti in an Australian woman's flat apartment. So he had just finished that assignment and then he met Prakash. So he already had a potted cacti in his hands and he thrust that cactus into Prakash's face and he runs away. And he runs away straight. He takes a bus and then finally a train to Glebe so that he can go up to his storeroom, which is his home. So while he does that, um, of course, time and time again, Prakash keeps on calling him, telling him that, see, you cannot do this. You are illegal. If you keep running away like this, I'll tell the police that you are illegal. So throughout the day, we find that Prakash is either calling up Danny or is trying to meet Danny and is trying to sort of threaten him that he is going to dob into Danny. Dob in is reporting to the authorities about somebody's illegal status. Um, so, so this is what the story is about, and so this is, as I said, Danny is a Sri Lankan, and while he goes through all these incidents, Danny also recalls how his first employer, who was under whom he was doing his internship, also exploited him. He was also an Indian, a South Indian, a Tamilian, in fact, and he had a curry restaurant called, and his name was Venkat. And Venkat told Danny very clearly that I'll pay you a little bit lesser than whatever is the law, so that I mean, we will allow you to work longer, and we will pay you slightly lesser, so that the employer also benefits from the situation, and so does the employee. But Danny also would get even with such people because he would steal plastic cutlery or condiments or tissue papers, if not anything else. And he was not the only one. Everybody from his college who was doing an internship of a similar kind was also doing the same thing. Now, while the entire action happens in Sydney, um, the kind of alienation and the opportunities that we see um, are the kinds that are experienced by all undocumented workers. Um, Primarily, Australia poses as a Western country, although it's the most southeastern country that we can think of. But the kind of legal structure that it has is very tall, hard, and erect. It can't be bent in any way. It cannot be negotiated in any way. And that becomes the conflict of the story. So the moral conflict is Danny feels that it is his moral duty to tell the police that Danny is the one who has killed Radha. But in case if he tells that, he will also have to own up and he will have to tell the police that, okay, yes, I am an illegal immigrant. Come catch me and get me deported. So, of course, apart from that, there's this climactic decision. Uh, so what should Danny do? Should he really report to the police or should he just sit tight and forget about everything? So the resolution is, I mean, it's a slightly an open-ended novel. Of course, we do know what happens in the end. And the underlying message is very clear. Of course, while Danny sort of makes this kind of uh, takes this decision, he comes across so many other illegal immigrants. Like there's this immigrant called Lynn. Now he stays in Glebe. Glebe is a place that is full of immigrants. I don't know if such a place exists, but mostly Indians are the ones who stay in a place called Parramatta or Haymarket in Sydney. Last year, I made a presentation on human rights and injustice and illegal immigration in Sydney. And I had also used this as one of my texts. So there also, before I had made that presentation, I did go around Sydney to find out what is what. So much of the things that we see in this novel are real. There is indeed a place called Villawood Detention Center. There is indeed a place called Erskine. There is a place called Parramatta, where there are many Indians who stay together, not just Indians, but even Asians. So these are some of the themes. Um, there is immigration and identity. There are a lot of people who do not deserve to be legal, but then they become legal residents. And this is very arbitrary. Like there was one blind singer and guitarist. He played the guitar very well. But just because he was blind, he got a lot of sympathy. He was illegal, but just because he was a Muslim, and because apparently the Australians are frightened of the fact that Muslim countries can retaliate in um, some way or the other, including and use violence. Apparently, he had been accommodated as a legal citizen, but he had come by the boat. So Lin was also one such immigrant. He had given place, he had given some shelter to a European boy who said that he had been exploited by some fruit picker. I mean, he had worked as a fruit picker, but he had been exploited. He was not paid his money at the end of the month. And Lin was Malaysian or an Indonesian. And Lin also owned up to this European boy saying that, yeah, okay, it doesn't matter if you are illegal. See, even I'm illegal, but then I'm working and I'm earning my living. And this is an honest way of life. So you should not worry. He even smuggled some tacos for this European boy from the restaurant he worked in. But unfortunately, after eating up those tacos and after his farewell to Lin, the next thing he did was he called up the immigration office and he mentioned about the whereabouts of all the illegal friends that he had made. So after that incident, of course, Lin never shared his contact details with anybody. So morality and survival become very important questions here. And so is systemic justice. So throughout, of course, Danny talks about how the system of uh, justice, although this is non-negotiable in so many ways, why does it become so arbitrary? And here he extends the question to not just the whole of Australia, but also to all other nations wherein such illegal residents stay or survive, particularly in Europe and in the US. So he talks about alienation in an urban space. Wherever Danny goes, he is exploited because people soon come to know that, or at least make guesses that he is illegal. So I had told you that he had gone to uproot cacti in the house of an Australian lady, and this lady said that, see, I am not an Australian. I am from Zimbabwe, and I wanted to become a citizen in the US. For 7 years. I have tried. I stayed in various cities. And my immigration lawyer became a US citizen just because his mother had waded through a river. And when she was 5 months pregnant, just so that she could give birth to her child on American soil. And just because of that, this immigration lawyer had become a US citizen. And despite so many other processes, this lady could never become a US citizen, and that's why she shifted to Australia. And she suspected that Danny must be illegal, otherwise, he would not be so habitually ready to work for so little. So of course there are these. So everybody has this burden of secrets, which take a psychological toll over the characters. There is a power dynamic that works here. Those who are legal often engage in illegal activities. Either they become smugglers or they do. Not all legal residents do that, but a lot of legal residents have been doing that. They may not, they may or may not be Australian citizens, but they do such things and they get away. And in case if they feel that there is a chance that they would get arrested, they would put the blame on an illegal citizen and get away. They know very well that sooner or later these illegal citizens would be punished, and so they put the blame on such people and they just get away. So this is what Danny describes throughout the novel. Now, characters, as I mentioned, we have Dhananjay Rajaratnam, an illegal undocumented immigrant. So, and he has this conflict. He has a lot of struggles as a migrant. uh, Radha is a victim, although she was not all, of course, she was a legal resident like Prakash and Mark, but what she was doing was totally illegal. And that's how this represents the complex dynamics of privilege and vulnerability. Prakash, again, the key suspect of Radha's murder, and he embodies a lot of exploitation. He exploits Danny, he exploits Radha, he takes away all her money, even to play his games on the gambling machines, he extracts money from Radha. And Danny's friends offer insights into migrant communities like Abe, like Lynn. I gave you the example of this Australian lady who actually belonged to Zimbabwe. And there are these law enforcement officers who are portrayed both as a threat and as a potential source of justice. There are symbolic roles. Each character represents a broader societal issues, particularly Tomo, Danny's employer, who is supposed to be a very exploitative person. So the narrative style, it keeps going back and forth. The language is simple. Of course, the story begins quite slowly. The first 60 pages are not that great to read. But after that, the story picks up pace, and it is full of symbolism. The tone is very emphatic, and at the same time, it is very sensitive towards those who become victims of such a lot of injustice. And it is episodic, as in every chapter is actually a time. So the first chapter is Australia, but for example, the next chapter is called 846. The next chapter is 852, for example, or 901. So these are all times, and it shows at what time what happens. And of course, there are these intercepting passages, like the first year of uh, Danny staying as an illegal resident, his second year as an illegal resident, his third and fourth, and so on. So that's how the story is made. Now, this is a very interesting read. I will I will leave you at this, and this is what I meant by the way ahead. So this is like an acknowledgement that the author gives at the end of the novel, and he says that the reply that Danny receives from the immigration office denying his refugee status was taken from excerpts of a real letter. There are and even whatever I mentioned in terms of Danny's answers that he received on Yahoo Answers um, were also real conversations. So a lot of such details are based on real life incidents. So that is why he has given this kind of an acknowledgement. So that is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening so patiently.
Thank you, Monali. I am not surprised that it was so thorough, you know, because you always are. So, in keeping with your usual, a lot of clarity, um, yeah, you demystify beautifully. So, thank you. A very
Thank you,
good
ma'am.
presentation. And I think now everyone can unmute and join the discussion. I don't know, like Arvind Adiga's style, whether the white tiger or this. I must confess, I'm not a fan, although I
Who's
do
it?
I do see that he's doing a good job. The novel is intriguing. You want to continue. And like you said, it's only 10.5 hours of a day. And Mrs. Dalloway, which is a much skinnier novel, is 18 hours. But that same focus on the interiority, the struggle within Danny, which is absolutely what today's readers are interested in. The working of the mind, who is obsessing with what and why. And it has many layers of complexity, as you have pointed out. So, very worthwhile read, I will say, but not a novel that I can say I love, you know. Why is that, Monali? Is it because none of the characters resonate with? I mean, I don't find any kind of uh, similarity. I do not feel for them. They're all. What do you think?
Uh, since I've been to that place, I did realize, and I have interacted with a lot of Indians there, and uh, of course, even if they are not legal citizens, they wouldn't own up. But the kind of problems that they face are really the ones that Arvind Adiga has really talked about. So yes, um, the fact that a lot of when law gets strict, people look for loopholes, and in the on the international front, Indians have a bad name as far as looking for loopholes is concerned. So even many of us, while traveling abroad, it is not very uncommon for us to be singled out, to be even frisked for
Yes.
in our luggages, for being colored in some way. And these are not experiences that are alien to us. And in case if we do travel illegally somewhere, it would not be very difficult for us to relate to many of these characters. But of course, we do not take the boat, we take the flight. Okay. And that is why we may have not faced those difficulties. But I faced some of them when I did take the flight last year and I did go to Sydney. And I found that the law there is very strict. In case if we are not honest to the dot, we do risk ourselves to a lot of trouble, immense fines, enormous fines. So even the slightest crossing of the line. I'll give you a very simple example. So there's a landing card. Anywhere in Australia we go, there's a landing card, and there we are supposed to own up what we have. So do we have cooked items? Do we have anything that contains the soil, for example, muddy boots, for example, or any kind of medication? Of course, we do carry the prescription, but these are certain things that they are worried about because they want to preserve the ecology of that place. And I was like, why are they so arrogant? What is so great about their ecology? And when I visited their zoo, for example, or even when I would be strolling around, I could see that their flora and fauna are very, very exotic. I mean, they are very different from the kinds that we get to see elsewhere. And this is probably the reason why they are so protective about it. And that's the kind of responsibility that they're showing both to the environment and their own people. And somewhere in this particular novel, um, it's mentioned that the law in Australia is 360 degrees, uh, which means that, so it's almost like this nice globe, wherein the Australians actually sleep and crawl and do whatever, swim very safely, and the law protects them against any kind of aliens, legal or illegal, doing any harm to them. So this overprotectiveness is mocked at in that particular novel. This may not be my favorite novel either, but it gives a lot of bitterness that the migrants suffer, whether they are legal or illegal, that's beside the point. But the bitterness that they suffer is what is important. The humane point of view should also be taken care of, is what the author is trying to get at. But having said that, doing things that are illegal is not a good idea. Is also something that he gets at, whether you are a legal citizen or an illegal citizen. So this is also, so there are many, many layers, yes. And he's talking about a lot of things here. So
Yeah.
that is one of the reasons why none of the characters really grow as a character. You will never find a rounded character. Each one actually represents a certain point of view. And of course, they even evolve. Danny has evolved. He had come there as a student, and he, of course, with very wrong kind of intentions. Okay, he did not come there to study. He wanted
No.
to gain a refugee status and bring his father there and stay there. And but now, of course, when I interacted with the people in Australia, they told me very clearly, we are not looking for people who are intelligent. We don't want doctors. We don't want lawyers. We don't want teachers like you, for example. We
Mhm.
want people who will do skill oriented work, people who can be good at masonry, people who are good barbers, who are hairstylists, or who are good at something or the other that involves physical labor. We want more cleaners, for example. So and that is what Asians are good at. So in case if they want to come, well, let them come. This is a white man's country. In case if they feel better here, of course, they are most welcome. So people want to take advantage of any kind of situation. So in case if the Asians or whoever goes there as immigrants, they want certain advantages. Australia is ready to do that, but even they would grab certain other advantage. And Australia here is not the only one. Europe is doing that, and so is the US. So
Oh,
we are
yes.
all in
So
the
it's
same
it's a
place.
very
And
live,
Asia is also doing that.
it's
So
a very live issue, isn't it? Just
yes.
moving
So
from
that's
country
why it's
to
a very,
country,
very
your
relevant
rights,
place.
and yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So there's Runa's hand up. Runa, would you
So
like to weigh
I want to make two observations, in this whole business and the themes coming out. I mean, and I would like to answer Mo's query, why don't we really love it as a book? I think maybe because it presents a very bleak picture. It presents a picture of problems which are really, really endemic to the current world situation, and it's causing a lot of problems all over the world, which also involve a lot of violence and insecurity. And it's something to which there is no solution. I mean, nobody has come up with a proper solution as yet at a country level or national level or anything else. So the two themes really, one is immigration and the other is the law. Now, the whole point about law and strict law, I mean, law is something which is supposed to protect society. Otherwise, there would be anarchy and, it would be might is right. So you need law, and strict means that it is enforced, right? So unless law is enforced, I mean, there's not much point. And we know that we face it every day in India, right? Right from traffic rules to whatever else. So I mean, and I want to leave out the Indian mentality of getting around the law and looking at loopholes. Point is, you need law to maintain
Yes,
an orderly society, and you need
undoubtedly.
enforcement of that law. The whole point is,
Yeah.
okay, so, so law, you need it, and it needs to be strict. If you have law at all, it needs to be strictly enforced. Second is the whole problem of immigration. Now you have legal immigration and you have illegal immigration. We need to know why. You know, I mean, and let us say the problem of legal immigration is not so much. If it's legal, it's legal. You have a legal position. Let's not talk of racial discrimination. That's a separate issue altogether, right? But illegal immigration happens because a person just cannot make a living in his own country and he is willing to take the wildest of risks to better his life. And that's why he goes. And this is a theme which has been covered in many, many books. I mean, for instance, Gun Island by Amitabh Ghosh, it's all about the Bangladeshis. I mean, wherever you go in the world, you will find them. And they're most of them illegal immigrants. So why? And in Europe now is covered with immigrants, illegal or otherwise, or refugees from the Middle East, and nobody likes it because there is a culture difference. So these are issues which have happened in the modern world today because of so many complex reasons, and there are no solutions. And I have a feeling this is why at least personally, I don't like to read these books because they are so bleak. And I don't have a solution. I don't know how the things are going to get okay. And I do want to feel a ray of hope. When I read a book, I want to feel a little uplifted. I want to, um, let's say, emphasize all the positive parts of life.
And
Yes,
it
indeed.
reminds me of a daughter. He said, say something good, Mama. This is all sadness that you're talking about, stories, etc. That would be there.
Exactly, exactly.
But coming back to what she has been saying, that uh, there has been some turnaround of Indians going abroad, and that you will find it more and more happening because jobs are scarce. The world is not climbing as fast as we thought it would. We were hoping that it would go on and on all these years, but it's not been going. So things are there. So people don't have jobs, and the jobs that are going are somewhere not down the line now. There used to be time when the Brits only wanted people to come and sweep the grounds
Uh,
of other places, etc.
Airport floors.
Airports, yes. And that's what it was all about, getting people to do the dirty work. But when people have coming through and are taking up the better paid jobs, and they get a better pay than the Americans, they are, I've seen that the Americans have seen. There was going to be a little aha, उसको क्यों मिलता है हमें चाहिए. So that is it. And what we have been doing, many of us, is trying to do it, go illegally. There's a movie also about it, something about Shah Rukh Khan has done it.
Donkey.
Donkey. That's there. That become a regular movie now. Everyone talks and says things about it.
It's a known situation.
It's,
Yes.
well,
Okay.
if you can't give them jobs here, they're going to go running abroad. You
Okay.
can't give them enough earning power, you're going to have them trying to find somewhere else. That's what it is. So the government is very, very responsible to do that. No,
Right.
you don't. Only one or two people having tons of money is not good at all for the world.
Anyway, so Wispy has her hand up.
Um,
Wispy, would you like to speak?
just a few things that I noticed. One, Monali, if you don't mind my pointing out, I think one thing you didn't seem to bring out fully was how these two, Radha and uh, what was his name? Prakash.
Prakash.
Yeah. Uh, how much they wanted Danny to come along with them. He calculated once how much they must have spent on him, uh, at restaurants and feeding him. Somehow they felt that Danny added something to their lives. And Danny sort of went along with them, not really wanting to, but otherwise, he is a perfectionist in his work. Why is he wanted by people to come and clean? And how he'd rather use all his own equipment. There's something he puts into his work, a certain dedication, even if it's just being a cleaner, and the how methodical he is in what he's doing. So that I thought uh, could have been emphasized a little. The other thing about this, that Australia, everything, it's a wonderful place to be in and go to. But look at the way the university that takes them in treats them. It's not something that you would applaud. They've, in a way, those students have been cheated. They paid up, at least most of them seem to have, and there was nothing being offered to them. And so it was like almost as though that universities facilitating this, taking them in, and then letting them loose. Go do what you want, make your own life. So I don't think everything in Australia was being shown as hunky dory, and then we poor Indians or whoever Sri Lankans have, um, you know, are looking for a better life. And also, why was Danny so badly treated by his own Sri Lankan immigration officers when he went back from his job in Dubai? There's nothing, no real reason. They claimed that there was some Danny who was a terrorist, and this man fitted bill, and he keeps going back to that bump on his arm where that immigration officer so cruelly um, uh, uh,
Butted his
burnt him
Have
cigarette.
the cigarette.
with that cigarette, and how he's kept for hours and hours, one immigration officer come, another one. I mean, why was that being done? Why was he being so ill-treated in his own country? So he's brought in these other shades, I feel, when you read closely. And frankly, I don't know, maybe I haven't read it carefully enough. Why did Prakash kill Radha? What was the motive? So, Monali, did you sort of arrive at something there?
We can't
Um,
hear you speak, so you suddenly gone low.
No, I think I did hear her. I'm sure Monali heard her. So, yes, indeed, Monali, let's have your take on this. What is the
uh,
motive behind that crime?
So it is not clear. It is not just mentioned. I think even during my presentation, I did mention that the scene of the murder, the crime, the intent behind it, how she was murdered, none of these have been described. But it is quite likely. I mean, we can make some intelligent guesses here. That well, Prakash habitually did extract money from Radha, which Radha would willingly give him, and probably at a certain point of time, in case if she had resisted, then to force it out of her, Prakash could have been violent with Radha and must have um, killed her, or probably he must have done it because the necessity of having Radha around um, was no longer uh, there. Probably this was one reason, but the reason there is not mentioned. I've been through the book twice, and in fact, there are three diaries that I have that are full of notes that I have written. There's one more. Oh, yes, here. So, which I have prepared, and I could see that none of these have any kind of uh, mention, which also says that probably because this was not really
The
the
issue.
crux of the story.
Yeah,
So
that's not the issue.
yes,
Yeah.
but I should have mentioned about how Danny would be dragged along with Prakash and Radha everywhere. And this, of course, gave Danny the opportunity of becoming the onlooker, and eventually being able to comment upon their behavior, because, of course, they are legal citizens. But what are legal citizens doing? I mean, are they taking advantage of their own vulnerability, or are they taking advantage of the law? So, or are they taking advantage of the vulnerability of the illegal migrants? So, there are these sensitive questions that come to the surface.
Yes.
Delia, you've been
Uh,
quiet quite some time. Come on, we would like to hear your opinion. Ginny is about to
Ginny?
speak.
I have nothing to add.
Okay.
Okay. Sanjay?
Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so I haven't read the book, but I got the impression that it must be quite an interesting tale because you have complex characters, you have moral ambiguity, you have conflict of interest, and you have a dead body. So it should make for an interesting story, I would imagine. And it's a book that I would like to read. I was also most impressed with the various facets which were brought out in Monali's presentation. I think she did a very comprehensive job, and she was looking at it from different perspectives, themes, characters, the story, the works. I thought that was very well done. Yeah. And what Runa was saying regarding immigration, of course, immigration is a problem everywhere. But one place where I've seen they've figured out how to handle this is probably the Middle East. So if you go to Dubai or Abu Dhabi or Qatar, Bahrain, you find that immigrants are 3 times the number of locals. You know, for every one Arab, there will be 3 people from South Asia or the Philippines.
True, true.
And they work on a simple principle that we won't mess with you, but you will not demand equality. This is the single defining principle there, and it's a principle that it's worked well for so many years for so many people. Even when I was in Kuwait, I found that people whose contracts were expiring were very keen to get those contracts renewed. They want to come back and work in Kuwait, you know. So that what happens with Europe or North America is that they can't conceive of a situation where somebody who's a resident there for a number of years doesn't have equal rights. In Middle Eastern countries, when nobody's allowed to vote in any case, even the locals don't have a vote, there's no question of the outsiders voting. So if you give up the principle of equality, then you do have a model that has worked successfully in the Middle East for some time. I mean, you can't protest, you can't do any politics there, you can't even be elected to a panchayat if they have one, but you're allowed to make your good life, peaceful life, and make decent money. So that's one solution, I feel. But Monali, excellent presentation. It's a book that I would like to read, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Where is Kaveri? She's been keeping quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Delia, you're also keeping quiet. You have to come on.
Latika unfortunately just left.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she would definitely have had something to say. Kaveri, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Sanjay, I haven't read the book. And Sanjay, I'm so sorry that I had to miss your presentation. It was on the 15th of December, I think.
Oh, it's kind of
So, it seemed to me as a tale of the underclass or the underprivileged and how they try to cope at one level. That in his own country, I wonder whether he was of Tamil origin and therefore treated so harshly in Sri Lanka. And they're basically, these are the people who are just trying to make a living, and they sort of cast adrift and they have to manage as best that they can. And it seemed to me there's a story of how people try to survive by their wits and do what they can, and then you have to cope with the consequences of what they're doing. Of course, Radha is from your story. By the way, those are beautiful illustrations that you put, Monali. It was very nicely done. I noticed the blonde highlights for Danny.
Thank you.
Put over there. So Radha, on the other hand, was someone who was secure in her, in financially speaking, but she was, in terms of her personal life, she was making a mess of it apparently, or she was choosing unwisely, and then her gambling addiction. So these are all flawed people. at one level or the other, financially, in terms of their status, in terms of their situation in life. Each one of them has some flaw or the other, and they are coping as best they can. The irony of all this, of course, is that the people who are these countries who are sort of so assiduously trying to control immigration are themselves immigrants who destroyed the original inhabitants of the countries in which they live, whether it's Australia or whether it's New Zealand or the US. And having then wrested everything from the original inhabitants, now they want to ensure that they do not have to share it with any other unfortunates who wash up on their shores. Or in Danny's case, it was, of course, the university which compelled him to he paid up a lot of money and he became a victim of a fraud, and because of that he was cast adrift. So from that point of view, I had a sort of what Mohini said was something which is exactly what I was thinking, is that I really applaud you for reading books like this. And I've noticed how much trouble you've taken, all those notes that you have written, because it's so depressing when you think about what the way these people have to lead their lives, and there's not even any kind of redeeming opportunity that they seem to get. And so from that point of view, it's a tough novel to go through. So that's just at my level, the impressions that I picked up. I haven't read it, but
Yeah,
thank you.
I think I thought the overriding feature that stayed with me was the terrible anxiety in Danny's mind all the time. Shall I do this? Shall I do that? Oh my gosh, I know this. Now what shall I do with this information? There's so much anxiety, all the time. We're just surviving through a day, navigating each day.
And it's the truth of our country that there are no jobs available. There are no jobs for people.
Yes. So he's talking of real issues, isn't he?
And
Absolutely real issues.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Real issues, serious issues, terrible issues.
But what? We are not looking at what our issues are. People who are at the way down, not even way down, just way down the ladder, are in a terrible way. Paisa, they're not getting
it's
money.
Real. I mean, it's real.
Lot of funds everywhere. You can see that the standard of living has gone down in many of these people. Sometimes one of them burst into tears and told me, his shop has gone off and he was washing cars. Anyway, leave that aside now. I think who's left?
Okay.
One
Anyone
minute.
else?
1 minute. Someone was here that I said, Delia Maria. There she is.
Hi there. Happy New Year to all of you.
Happy New Year, Delia, and good to have you back. Long time.
Yeah, normally I go to church every Sunday, but today I happened not to go to church, so I was able to zoom in. So I'd like to say that the next few years, there are going to be a lot of books like this, because all over the world, people are fighting immigrants. And they're holding placards saying, go home, we don't want you. Right-wing conservative governments are coming to power everywhere. And they are going to make the immigrant the scapegoat, and mostly the immigrants from Africa and Asia and Latin America. So this is a very topical book, and I'm happy I listened to the story, although I don't like Arvind's writing. I read the White Tiger, sorry, and I was not very happy with the style, but I think he takes up topical issues, and these issues need to be told. They are told in a fiction form, and the young generation, who are all always eyeing the markets and the job markets abroad, need to know all these things.
Right, you are. Okay.
Anyone else more left?
Yeah, I think everyone has had their say. All right. So, Monali, thank you very much. As I said, as always, you did a grand job. So that those who haven't read the book also got a very good idea of what the book contains and what it's all about. So excellent
Thank you
presentation.
for the opportunity, ma'am.